Well, people, I think I've had my MacGyver moment of the day. What do you do if you happen to come across a leftover piece of dental floss, a toothpick, and an emergency chopstick? It's not really to get yourself out of a bind. I just found a way to literally fish for some cheese. Yep, my talents are really going to good use here. Can't believe that I actually found a literal meaning to the phrase fishing for some cheese. Whatever, let's move on to important stuff. This is the Wandering Yuki's Cheese Cafe, and I'm ready to do a little bit more cooking for tonight. Now, anyone who's followed me for the years has known that I'm a pretty big fanatic of anything related to salty pig, oily bird, or even charred cow. In case you need further proof, I do have coasters that solidify that. But reality is that you don't always need to have any kind of meat in order to have a really good meal. Sometimes you just need to have some veggies with a little bit of beans and you're okay for eating. And I figured that's what the theme of today would be. I feel like doing a lentil and rice dish. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a few steps and what I like to do for some of my cooking. So stay tuned as we get going on this. So the first thing you would need to do is get some lentils ready for yourself. I had a few, like a little bit of green lentils left, but it was just not enough to get my serving set up. So all I had to do was add a bit more red lentils to get 1 full cup. Yeah, you got a bit of red and green together. It's a nice blend. You want to diversify your selection of beans, I suppose. And next thing you got to do is rinse them out. Luckily, this isn't like kidney beans where you have to let it soak overnight for a few hours. This is just rinse, and then you can start cooking it right away. Just be warned, you may be making a mess with this thing. Alright. These beans are good and rinsed now. So for 1 cup of lentils, you would need to have about 3 cups of water in order to cook it properly. All you gotta do is get them into the pot of water, mix up a little bit, and then start letting the water boil. And then you'll know you're ready. Well, the next step is to make sure the water boils, and then you can lower the heat afterwards, because it will need to cook for a little while longer. I was thinking back to another weird story of mine when I was working with some beans once. I think I might have had a really long day. Was trying to find something to eat for myself. I go into the pantry, pull something out, and I'm not even sure what. And then I'm thinking to myself, this cracker, this thing is really hard to bite through. And what happened was, it turned out I had gone into my bag of kidney beans, tried to put one in my mouth, and I realized, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. And good thing I didn't actually eat it, because you're not supposed to eat those beans raw. Those you really have to cook. So, without further ado, stove is on, and beans are ready to boil. And of course you want to have your range hood going on, so that any of the steam and the hot air is coming up is going to be filtered out through there. Oh, son of a submariner, it's ready! Okay, so once you see it boiling, you just cut the heat, cover it up, and then set a timer for about 15 to 20 minutes so that it's cooked properly. Okay, I haven't cooked beans like this in a long time. I forgot that they explode like that. I guess technically it could be easier to just get some, I don't know, pre-prepared lentils, but I prefer fresh. It's like people who say that the best pierogies they ever had were bought in some random store in their frozen section. There's some good ones, but I can guarantee that you haven't really had pierogies until you've had a full made. Well, with all the time I had to wait, I managed to get a little bit of cleanup done in the kitchen. Because, you don't want to have anything cluttered up over here, making a mess. You feel like the walls are closed in on you, and then you're going to be surrounded by pots and pans that are ready to wage war against you. And wait, where was I going with that? Then on that note, with everything done, I am now ready to take off the lentils. Now, all you gotta do is drain these into a strainer, and then I'm gonna keep these aside while I prepare the next batch of food. I suppose some people, burning. I suppose some people will probably use this liquid for if ever they want to make a lentil soup as opposed to making their own broth. But in this case, it gets the job done. Seems to be a bit messy right now. Oh well. On that note, I'm just going to get some cleanup done for this and then be able to move on to the next step, my rice. So we'll be back after a word from our sponsor. Oh yeah, I don't have sponsors yet. Gotta get my name out there more often. Okay, I'll admit, this is the first time I've done lentils just to have them on their own. Usually I include this in some kind of a soup where they're mixed up with the broth, but I didn't think it would be this creamy. Somehow I inadvertently created a cream of lentil soup for myself. I guess I'll keep this aside and hopefully this is actually going to be usable for my recipe. But next step I'm going to do is a bit of rice. If you're thinking I'm going to be using like that instant rice you cook in 5-8 minutes, nah, that's not for me. I'm actually a big fan of basmati rice. Most of the packages are going to say that you should put about 2 cups of water for every cup of rice. That being said, it's actually better to use less than that. I would say 1.5 cups to 1 3/4 cups if you really like to have your rice sticky. Otherwise, it's just going to end up too watery here. But I'm doing something else for a bit of flavoring instead. Mostly because I had some leftover chicken broth that I kind of wanted to clear up, and it was going to go bad if I didn't use it. So I'm taking this, and I put about 3 cups of the broth with 1/4 cup of water in here just to give it some good measure. That way I taste this, and I'll think to myself, tastes like chicken. No, of course not. So I guess technically this isn't a completely vegetarian recipe because of the chicken stock. But technically, you can even use vegetable stock and it's still going to get the job done too. Whatever the case, you start boiling your water right now. And then afterwards, once it boils, you add your 2 cups of rice and then lower the heat, really low, and let it cook for about a good 15 minutes. Boy, looks like those remnant bean runoff has really started to go onto the burner and burnt it up. I'm starting to inhale all those fumes. Can't be any worse than inhaling campfire, right? But we're at the perfect time. Now that our liquefied chicken is starting to boil, it's time to add our rice. Once again, it's like about 3.25 cups of fluids, to which you put about 2 cups of rice. You may notice too that I'm not adding any salt onto this, for a very good reason. I looked at the contents of the broth. It has like 580 milligrams of sodium in there. I don't think we need any salt-on-salt action whatsoever. No double saltiness. Let it soak in. Oops, that's not the right lid. So now it's going to be lowered pretty low, cooking for another 15 minutes. And voila! And now we play the waiting game. But I suppose if we're going to be playing the waiting game, we may as well get some other veggies set up. I feel like using an eggplant today. Now, when I was younger, this didn't always used to appeal to me. And I know that it's not exactly a flavor and texture that's for everybody, but depending on how you prepare it, this could be really tasty. One of my favorite things I used to have was around Concordia. If any of you were going to Concordia, like maybe around 2004, 2007, or a little after that, there was a sandwich shop close by that was called Sant'Angelo's. And one of the specialties they had was, it was a veal parmesan sandwich. If ever you got it all dressed, they would give it to you with the provolone cheese, one of the smellier cheeses out there. And they even had some marinated eggplant. Of course, if you had that, combined with some hot peppers, some sauce, all the flavors would not really be noticeable. It would all blend in pretty well and wouldn't be as traceable. But the trick to this is, you really want to let this cook really well and saute it in a good oil and let it cook long so that it really softens up. And that's basically your standard issue eggplant. Basmati is in progress right now, as you can see. Now, as this rice is starting to cook, you'll notice that the water level goes down, That's a good sign it's all being absorbed, stewed up, and I still have like a little under 6 minutes before we're ready to go. Not bad and good eating. And then here's a close-up of how that lentil mixture turned out. Very liquefied, like more so than I anticipated. I'm hoping once I blend all this stuff together that it's definitely a tasty meal. And I have all my eggplants set up. There's still plenty more to go in case I ever want to cook for a little while longer, or sometime later in the week. So the next step I'm going to do is slice up some mushrooms over here. I really became a fan of portobello mushrooms in recent times, only because they feel very meaty and filling, and even the texture cooked is not bad. And even regular mushrooms, when done really well, they're amazing. You don't really need much either, just like a little bit of a cooking oil, salt and pepper, and you're good to go with that. I'll make sure I put some extra mushrooms too. Why? Well, I suppose eventually you'll run into the super mushroom. It makes you want to grow big, like 3 times your size, give you the confidence to start stomping on goombas if you find any. Of course, the idea of finding goombas out here in the middle of Longueuil, it's inconceivable. Yeah, don't tell me if I use the word right or not, I don't care. Okay, mushrooms are all set up. Sadly, there was no super mushrooms over here. Not even like a 1-up mushroom to get an extra life. Eggplant's ready. Part of me is thinking maybe I should slice this up a little bit more later. But the next important step is your skewer. Put in 3 tablespoons of oil to get this all cooked up for us. Here I'm going to be using some avocado oil. It's actually something one of my buddies had done on the grill with some eggplant in the past. I enjoyed it. I thought, let's take some avocado oil because it gives it a different flavor. Olive oil is good, but not always necessary, and you might want to change up your flavoring every now and then. So let this heat up, and then once it gets just the right temperature, you could throw the rest of the veggies in, and then that would really saute. Once that's ready, I can throw in the rice and then the lentils. Find out how this is going to turn out. Man, starting to just makes me feel like I'm a mad scientist. I mean, I'm just taking a bunch of whatever and throwing it all together. Seems to be getting pretty warm now. Maybe not scalding hot. That's exactly how you want to do it with the oil. You don't want it to splash everywhere and burn everything. So without further ado, time to oil up some fungus, everybody. Yeah, mushrooms fungus, but oil fungus? Ew. Even I'm grossed out by that. Alright, it's in. Time to let it stir. These things are still pretty firm, but then eventually they get all soft, tender, and even make a bit of a juice too. I could even use that juice to stew the eggplant to get it to further soften up as well. We're on the home stretch, everyone. Still hoping this thing is good. Alright. After some careful consideration, I decided to do more bite-sized pieces of eggplant instead of the long strips. It's probably going to let it cook better, and I imagine too it's going to blend in a lot more with the rice. So those mushrooms are really starting to become really juicy and tender. Just need to give this a few more minutes before the eggplant starts to do the exact same thing. And then once that's set up, it's time to combine it all together. The moment of truth, everyone. Alright. This is kind of looking good here. Honestly, the vegetables are the most appetizing part of this dish. Kind of stoked. And I suppose I do need a little bit of kick, even if I'm not going to be using any salt. So, small shake of fine black pepper to get the job done. Not too much. Just enough to give it some spice. You gotta add some spice into your life, people. Okay, these veggies are looking really nice now. I think I'm at the point I could say, time to cut the heat. What I've done is I've also transferred my basmati rice into this dish over here. And now I'm going to do the final combinations. So, eggplant and mushroom are all going to be coming in. Got to get every last drop in there. There we go, mushroom runoff is there. And then last but not least, or last and not least sadly, depending on your perspective, is the lentils. This really turned out tasty. And we're going to find out how this is. I'm going to combine it in here, then stir it all up. Jesus, it's like ketchup with beans in it. Man. So I will mix it all up. and find out how well it is. The moment of truth coming up, people. Gotta see if this stuff's edible. We'll be right back. All right. Well, I finally got the moment of truth. This thing is like a green paste with some basmati rice, stewing in some chicken runoff with some sauteed mushroom and eggplant. I'm going to find out if this thing is actually edible. So this is probably everyone's favorite part. Find out if it's good, or depending on your perspective, watching me torture myself. They always say never judge a book by its cover, right? So, this is what I've learned. This paste was like really, it was like very gross looking to me at first, but you combine it with everything else, it actually has a really good flavor. Why it's turned out green when I used a lot of red lentils? I haven't really decided yet, or haven't figured it out. But I guess it's a good time to wrap up things. Oh yeah, more cheese fishing. So, this is Wandering Yuki's Cheese Cafe. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button for more details. More new videos will be coming up in the future. Good night, everyone, and remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But then if it ain't broke and you do try to fix it, maybe you'll learn some new things. Good night.